In a bar, a burly warrior talks about a triple S-rank dungeon that's said to be unbeatable. At that, another adventurer adds that everyone in that place has already heard of it. Even legendary warriors and mages with super high levels have tried to raid the place and failed. No one has ever reached the middle floors because they say the strongest being of all lives deep inside. With that, we see a group of famous heroes standing in front of a giant tower, unable to get in. The warrior punches the invisible barrier, annoyed to see the difficulty is worse than the rumors. A red screen warns them that they don't have the required level of 999 for the challenge. The three of them back away, terrified by the absurd requirement, and conclude that no one will ever beat the tower. Hiding in the shadows, a young man with horns smiles as he reports that another group has failed and left. However, he assures his team of giant monsters that no invader would get past them. With a determined look, the servant swears his loyalty and promises they will never let anyone reach the boss. Being very kind, the master thanks his companions for their support while thinking about his home. In that Twilight Tower, the powerful leader is actually the one who lovingly protects all its inhabitants. Changing worlds, we see a boy walking sadly down the street, thinking modern society is a trash game. He believes that life is based on ranks, and those with high scores live like true kings. Meanwhile, the failures are looked down upon, and trying to climb the ranks only makes life harder. Standing at the crosswalk, the young man concludes that maybe accepting his terrible situation is the only way out. His name is Imamura, and he gets very depressed imagining he'll never be happy living like this. Exhausted from so much misery, the student sighs heavily until he notices a bright light coming his way. Just then, a runaway truck appears out of nowhere, shining its lights on the poor guy and causing a tragedy. Waking up dazed, the victim of that terrible accident tries to figure out where he is as he opens his eyes. He slowly raises his arm and is completely shocked to see a hand made purely of bone. Utterly desperate, the young man screams, not understanding why his body has turned into a skeleton. In disbelief, he feels his own shoulders, realizing the problem goes far beyond his arm. A screen appears, revealing that he is now a level 5 undead and has no flesh at all. Reading the floating message, the boy wonders if he's inside some crazy fantasy game. Recalling his last moments, he perfectly remembers the truck and concludes that he really did pass away. With that, another blue window pops up, informing him that this mysterious place is a low-rank dungeon. Suddenly, a cute noise catches the scared protagonist's attention, who tries to focus on the green grass. Extremely confused by the sudden sound, the poor skeleton turns his skull to understand what happened. Looking down, he finds a small, level 1 white pup wagging its tail cutely. After the initial shock, the skinny monster observes the little furry animal, not knowing how to react. Trembling with fear, the boy wonders if that wild pup plans to use his bones as a snack. Ignoring the danger, the adorable little creature playfully jumps on the undead's legs, just wanting to play. Realizing the wolf's good intentions, he gives its head a nice pat, and the little thing just melts. With a smile on his skeletal face, the young man realizes he's in no danger with this little angel around. However, the peace is short-lived as a noise in the bushes makes the skeleton quickly turn his head. As he watches the giant forest trees, silence fills the air while a few leaves fall. Relaxing again, the protagonist reflects that this new life surrounded by nature might be much better. Suddenly, the little wolf perks up its cute ears, sensing a malicious energy approaching. A red alert screen appears, flashing non-stop, warning that a new challenger has invaded the area. Totally lost by the deadly warning, the boy tries to understand the situation while his pet trembles badly. Seeing the little critter scared and whimpering, the skeleton gets worried and asks why it's so panicked. Hidden in the shadows, a hunter wields his dangerous crossbow and celebrates finding his prey so quickly. Sensing the strong hostile intent, the young man quickly turns his body, looking for the owner of that voice. Mercilessly, a sharp arrow flies through the wind and hits the boy's skull with a direct shot. Instantly losing his balance, the monster's fragile body collapses to the ground without any resistance. To make things worse, another lethal arrow is fired, landing in the grass right next to the little wolf, who yelps in fear. Cruelly, the next attack pierces the small, defenseless animal's back, hurting it immediately. Lying on the damp earth, the boy can barely process such brutality as his vision fades to black. With heavy steps, the fearsome adventurer walks slowly toward the bodies to collect his reward. The proud hunter looks at his downed victims, celebrating how easy it was to get good materials. Trapped in deep darkness, our hero's mind begins to fail, and he just questions his fate. Remembering the accident with the giant truck, the boy wonders if his soul is gone forever. Surprisingly, the wolf's soft cry echoes in his head, bringing him back to the world of the living. Placing a hand on his sore head, the young man is stunned to find his body is still working just fine. Staring at his intact bones, he concludes that he was truly reborn, and all of that was a terrifying vision. Hugging his cute little pet with affection, he is absolutely sure that his previous end was very real. During the moment of darkness, he recounts feeling the adventurer cruelly taking the poor pup's fur. To make matters worse, that miserable hunter had also removed the little creature's fangs in a very cowardly way. With blurred vision, he remembers the cruel adventurer using a sharp knife to harm his pet. Then, the memories show the villain's dirty hands holding the pup's freshly removed little teeth. The wicked hunter was smiling maliciously while holding the cowardly trophy from his hunt. On top of that, the man reached out his huge hand, wanting to profit by selling the skinny skeleton's ribs. Using that dirty blade, the hunter broke and removed the boy's bones without any pity. Waking from this nightmare, the young man shivers all over as he feels all that terrible pain again. Suddenly, the system warning flashes before him, informing him that another invader has arrived in the area. Absolutely terrified, he can't believe that more enemies have appeared so quickly. Fearing he might lose his life for a third time, the young man decides he needs to hide immediately. The poor little wolf cowers by the tree as heavy footsteps get closer. In an act of courage, the skeleton grabs his pet, saying they would escape from there together. At that moment, we see the invader, who is a swordsman with a red tattoo on his chest. Hiding in the bushes, the two watch a pair of adventurers who are mocking how easy the place is. The archer and his partner laugh heartily, complaining about ending up in such a weak dungeon. Hearing that arrogant conversation, the boy peeks at the two big guys, breaking out in a cold sweat from fear. The archer comments that at least this place has perfect monsters for creating energy potions. His plan was just to defeat a few easy creatures to relax, and then enjoy the night. The spiky-haired swordsman agrees with a smile, saying he loves doing this daily hunt. The young man reflects that he was reincarnated into a fantasy world, but laments not getting any overpowered abilities. Holding his own skull, he suffers from being just a trash mob used for farming materials. He understands perfectly that his only purpose now is to be easy prey for rookie adventurers. And to make matters worse, the dungeon revives its creatures every time they are brutally taken down. This horrifies him as he realizes he'll live in an endless cycle of pain and defeat every single day. But suddenly, the young skeleton's eyes widen as he has an epiphany about his destiny. Looking at his little wolf, he realizes the small pup has already suffered this torment countless times before. Before he can finish his thought, the enemy warrior leaps from the bushes, preparing an attack. The sharp blade cuts through the air and smashes the ground, scaring the furry pet, who flees in desperation. The protagonist grabs his partner in his arms and runs away quickly, not understanding how they were discovered. Watching the pathetic escape, the armored human raises an eyebrow, completely confused. He finds it very bizarre to see an undead running scared like a coward through the middle of the forest. The archer calmly draws his bow, saying a simple shot will solve this problem. With that, several purple energy arrows shoot out swiftly toward the skeletal monster's back. Seeing the danger approach, the boy panics, thinking his cycle of torment is about to begin again. Unfortunately, one of the shots hits the protagonist's fragile body head-on, causing a lot of damage. The violent impact sends the poor pup flying through the air, slipping from its defeated owner's arms. Lying on the grass, the boy of bones can't move while his pet tumbles across the ground hurt. With his face pressed to the damp earth, the monster lets out a low groan, feeling his strength fading. Gathering the last of his energy, he lifts his head and freezes upon seeing his injured companion on the ground. Before he can help the wolf, more arrows hit his spine, taking the rest of his life. The cowardly duo walks over calmly, complaining that this place only has easy trash to defeat. The archer stops in front of his prey, wearing heavy leather boots and preparing his knife. Focusing on the downed animal, the evil man suggests starting the collection with the small, defenseless creature. The sharp weapon comes down quickly toward the pet, ready to finish the target easily. But a blue light shines brightly in front of the human, suddenly stopping his attack. A bright, menacing gaze focuses on the hunter, vowing that such cruelty would not be allowed there. An explosion of energy fills the area as the young man reflects on their weakness. the protagonist decides he will become an invincible dungeon to protect the one he now loves. A secret system message is activated, informing him that the true boss of the place has awakened. Remembering the past, Imamura recalls when he thought his useless life didn't matter. However, mystical magic reconstructs his body as he internally screams that he wants to change. The invaders cover their faces, trying to shield themselves from the incredible flash of light that dominates the entire forest. The panel warns of a dangerous evolution as the boy feels a colossal power emerging. Slowly, the dry bones are covered by a magical skin, recreating his former human form. The student's face reappears perfectly, keeping only the glowing eyes of a creature. Shocked by the absurd scene, the swordsman questions how a piece of trash like that could evolve. Being arrogant, the archer smirks, saying that low-level monsters will always be very weak. Excited by the extra challenge, the wicked pair prepares their weapons to take them both down right there. Determined to save his friend, the evolved young man charges swiftly toward the hunters. The archer loses sight of the target, completely confused by the enemy's sudden disappearance. Surprising the villains, our powerful protagonist appears, falling from the sky ready for combat. Landing violently in front of the archer, our hero knocks the villain to the ground with the brutal impact. Watching his partner go flying, the swordsman questions what just happened so suddenly. Totally enraged by the situation, the big guy curses, gripping his weapon tightly with great hatred. Before he can attack, a giant ice crystal falls rapidly from the sky, surprising the invader. At that, the warrior freezes in fear as he notices the protagonist's long tail passing right by his face. At this moment, we see the guardian's cold, glowing gaze as he stares down his prey with great determination. Breaking into a cold sweat, the hunter panics when he sees that his steel sword has been cut by the monster's tail. But the archer gets up furiously, cursing the hero as he prepares his bow for a deadly shot. With fury in his eyes, the cowardly human releases the bowstring, firing the arrow with all his might. Seeing a chance to escape, the swordsman abandons his partner and cowardly runs to save his own life. Meanwhile, the other villain shouts for the monster to perish, firing several arrows of light him. However, the hunter's confident smirk quickly vanishes, replaced by an expression of pure confusion. To the archer's terror, his attacks shatter into pieces upon hitting the young man's resistant body. Trembling from head to toe, the human finally reads the system screen, which reveals the monster is a boss. With an imposing aura, the powerful guardian firmly warns the invader to never return there. The coward doesn't think twice and turns his back, running like crazy, afraid of losing his own life. Crying in terror, the hunter runs toward the dungeon's enormous gate, admitting his humiliating defeat. Seeing the exit nearby, a smile of relief appears on his face, but a floating warning seals his fate. At that, the archer notices something strange happening and quickly turns his head, getting a huge shock. Looking ahead, he sees that the massive door is already closing right in front of his fleeing partner. In disbelief, the swordman tries to speed up, refusing to accept that he'll be trapped in that place. In desperation, the big guy reaches out his hand, begging the door to wait just a little longer before locking. Being a false friend, he ignores the archer behind him, stating he would never wait for him anyway. However, karma acts quickly, and the fugitive gets caught by the stone doors, crying out in great pain. With a giant boom, the enormous entrance locks, sealing the tragic fate of those hunters for good. After chasing off the bad guys, the hero relaxes, and the bright light in his mysterious eyes begins to fade. Breathing a sigh of relief, the young man smiles happily, realizing he really managed to fend off the danger this time. But his joy ends when he looks down and finds the lifeless body of his poor, cute little pup. Overcome with sadness, the guardian grieves, thinking the adorable little creature might not return to this world. Suddenly, small particles of light begin to appear around the injured body, surprising the monster. The young man's eyes widen, impressed by the magical glow that envelopes his animal companion. With that, the mystical light grows stronger, completely surrounding the little creature in a purifying energy. Miraculously, the little wolf wakes up perfectly healed and wags its tail excitedly with a smile on its face. Completely euphoric, the hero cries with joy as he sees his pet affectionately rubbing its head against his leg. With a sincere smile, our protagonist gives thanks, relieved that he didn't lose his only little friend. However, the calm doesn't last long, as the boy notices a bizarre detail swinging behind his legs. Startled, he questions where that strange tail came from as he notices his body has turned into a shadow. Not understanding his own evolution, he is surprised again by the system panel appearing out of nowhere. Reading the glowing notice, the young man finally checks his stats, realizing his new leadership position. Totally in shock, he concludes that he's become the new dungeon boss and has no idea how to handle this craziness. Far away in the hideout of a dangerous guild, a minion desperately reports the awakening of a boss. Trembling badly, the thug warns that the skeletal monster has evolved into something terrifying and very dangerous. Hearing the whining, the gang leader scoffs at his lackey, finding it pathetic that he lost in a weak place. Drinking his wine, the criminal boss complains about the hunter's incompetence, not noticing a shadow appearing. At that, the minion begins to stutter in pure terror, pointing to the evil creature hidden in the darkness. Suddenly, the fangs of a gigantic purple dragon appear, ready to devour the poor guy in a second. With a fatal bite, the beast disposes of the useless lackey, while its dark master questions his henchman. Seeing the brutality of the true commander, the drinker swallows hard and obeys promptly without complaint. Being very sadistic, the supreme villain orders the killing of all the wolves in the forest, using a baby dragon. Sitting on his evil throne, the leader orders the little monster to completely destroy that pathetic dungeon. The gigantic figure orders the hunt to begin as we watch the two-headed dragon trapped in its cage. Excited by the bloody mission, the henchman glares at the imprisoned beast, telling it to prove its worth in battle. Silent and mysterious, the two-headed creature's purple eyes glow in the dark, giving off a very grim vibe. Being very aggressive, the man kicks the iron bars, complaining about the beast staring at him so angrily. Teaching it how the world works, the villain warns that weak monsters end up sliced and sold for a good price. Emitting a frightening purple aura, the hunter threatens the beast, demanding that it cause a lot of damage during the invasion. Returning to the calm of the forest, our hero carries his little wolf while observing the beauty of the place. Walking along the tree branches, he notices that his new home is huge, looking like large, ancient ruins. With a goofy smile on his face, he confesses that he never imagined he'd end up living peacefully in nature. Curious about the magical place's secrets, the guardian decides to jump into the bushes to explore deeper. Walking through the forest, the new boss decides to explore his mysterious territory a bit more. Looking at the gigantic trees, he is amazed by the peaceful and pure vibe of the nature there. At that moment, the young man figures there must be other creatures living in such an immense place. Suddenly, the small pup barks excitedly, catching its master's attention, who looks over confused. Not understanding wolf language, the hero tries to guess if his partner found something dangerous. A sudden surprise makes the guardian's eyes widen as he notices a strange movement. With the bushes moving on their own, the young man backs away, scared, fearing another hunter attack. At that, the furry pet barks cutely again as a bright energy appears in the leaves. Stunned by the scene, the protagonist's jaw drops when he sees there is a second wolf there. Soon, several noises begin to echo from all sides, leaving the master completely lost. Several blue panels pop up, revealing that an entire pack of level 1 wolves was hidden. The shock is immense as he realizes that dozens of little pups inhabit that magical dungeon. Surrounded by immense cuteness, the guardian figures it looks more like a welcome dance. However, something bright in the background catches the leader's attention, and he shifts his focus. Looking at the bushes, he wonders if that mysterious light is some kind of enemy trap. Fascinated by the discovery, the young man gets closer and finds magical mushrooms that glow in the dark. He never imagined he would find such mystical and beautiful things inside his own home. Reading the status window, the young man realizes that even the luminous fungi are level 1. Analyzing the plants, the boss reflects on whether everything in that environment has very weak stats. And this brings a great realization to the guardian, who finally understands his home's situation. Comparing the stats, he notices that the adorable little wolves have the same strength as a simple mushroom. Worried about his friends, the hero becomes sad, concluding that the wolves are extremely fragile. Walking through the grove, the young man reports having found only 30 pups living on that floor. At that moment, he realizes that his dungeon is home only to fragile and defenseless creatures. Staring at the large entrance gate, he understands why hunters attack the place so often. The terrible memory of his pet's demise returns, showing just how cruel humans are. With fury in his eyes, the guardian clenches his fists, determined to change this unjust reality. The little white pup tilts its head cutely, not understanding its new owner's serious expression. Soon, an adorable yawn from the little animal dispels the tension in the air, startling the boy. Exhausted from the adventures, the pet curls up on the soft grass, closing its little eyes to sleep. Seeing the animal's innocence, the master feels his heart soften with so much tenderness. Sitting in the middle of the pack, the leader gives a genuine smile as he feels the warmth of all the little wolves. He knows that the outside world sees these beings only as valuable hunting materials. But the hero firmly promises that he will protect every single one of those little ones with his own life. Playing with the whole group, the boss enjoys the peace as the pups climb on his shoulders. Analyzing the risks, the young man concludes that staying near the main gate is a terrible idea. Taking the lead, he orders all the inhabitants to retreat to the back of the dark woods. The little wolf whimpers confused, as its owner explains the need to find a safe shelter. Because if new invaders arrived, they would be easy targets right at the entrance of the labyrinth. Suddenly, a red warning reflects in the guardian's purple eyes, and he freezes in terror. The floating panel declares that new challengers have invaded the area, ending the tranquility. Desperate about the situation, the boy curses his bad luck while the pets tremble with fear. A blinding light shines through the crack of the enormous gate, announcing the arrival of cruel hunters. Someone shouts an attack order, making a winged monster cross the dungeon's skies. Caught by surprise, our protagonist quickly backs away, fearing a deadly sneak attack. The shock grows as he faces a huge two-headed dragon coming straight for him. The leader of the thugs smiles wickedly, holding chains, confirming the rumors about the dungeon. With that, the hero is utterly terrified at having to face such well-armed henchmen. Being ruthless, the wrongdoer orders his winged beasts to tear the forest guardian to shreds. The enormous beasts dive violently, ready to rip the prey apart in a single blow. At that, the boy panics and yells for the little wolves to run far away from the danger. The impact of the demonic wings throws the boss backward, making any chance of defense impossible. Watching the pups, the hero notices they are too terrified to move their little paws. Fighting against the giant beasts, the boy fears he won't be able to save the entire pack by himself. Uncertainty takes over his brilliant mind as the fear of failure tightens his chest. Memories of the fatal arrow shot and the bloodied blade haunt the cornered leader. Fearing he'll see his friends taken down again, he decides to fight until the end to prevent disaster. To everyone's surprise, the little white pup steps forward and barks bravely at the dragon. Fascinated by the little creature's boldness, the master gains a new spark of determination in the battle. Leading the resistance, the small furry hero shows its fangs, proving it won't back down. Bravely, the little wolf barks loudly, wanting to defend its new master from the threat. But the pup's cuteness only amuses the enemies, who don't feel a single bit of fear. Remembering the past, the young man recalls how he had to sacrifice his own bones for the little creature. So, seeing his pet's bravery, he decides it's time to act like a true leader. With a smile on his face, the hero thanks all his furry companions for their loyalty. At that, the hunter lets out an evil laugh, finding it very amusing to see his prey running. Annoyed, the guardian releases his magical energy, stating that he won't let anyone harm them. Mocking his attitude, the supreme villain calls the boy a sassy prey with great scorn. Soon, the cruel wrongdoer threatens his own dragons, demanding they show some useful power. With no choice, one of the beasts opens its gigantic mouth, charging up a super destructive magic. A system screen confirms that the evil creature's special ability has been activated. Seeing that, our protagonist is flabbergasted, noticing that monsters also use powers. Suddenly, the winged monster fires a beam of freezing energy toward the target. The violent attack hits the ground, creating a true explosion of ice all over the scene. Startled, the dungeon leader's eyes widen as he realizes the danger of that assault. Impressively, the blue flames freeze the entire ground with terrifying speed. Analyzing the damage, the hero quickly deduces that this is definitely not an ordinary fire. Fleeing the affected area, the young man runs swiftly as the other beast advances through the air. Again, the alert warns that the dragon's second head is preparing its lethal technique. An incredible blast of fire hits the ground, forcing the young guardian to dive away. The intense flames melt everything around, making the boy break into a cold sweat from the heat. The power of the blow was so destructive that even the earth turned into a sea of pure hot lava. Watching the beasts in the sky, he reflects on the extreme danger of those elemental flames. With his brilliant mind, he compares these attacks to special abilities in video games. Logically, each beast has a different power, one being a freezing flame and the other a melting one. Thinking fast, the student faces the enemy leader, fearing he might also have magic. At that, He deduces that if the invaders use techniques, he must also have a card up his sleeve. Surprisingly, a blue screen appears in his vision, confirming that there are powers available. The luminous warning shines in the darkness, showing that the boss of the forest can use his strength. While he tries to read his new options, the two monsters continue attacking without a break. The window reveals the Rebirth skill, which allows him to absorb the powers of defeated opponents. Reading that overpowered information, the purple-eyed young man is stunned by how broken it is. Taking advantage of the distraction, the cowardly villain fires an arrow, telling the hero to focus on the fight. Without wasting time, the hunter shoots several purple energy arrows at an incredible speed. The projectiles dangerously cut through the wind, flying straight to hit our master's body. However, the boy gets super confused when he realizes the attacks have mysteriously vanished in mid-air. Suddenly, the violent impact hits his shoulder, causing pain and sending a spray of red into the air. Laughing wickedly, the thug mocks the prey while the system reveals the magic he used. Holding the wound, the protagonist finally understands that the enemy used a hidden ability. Observing carefully, he notices that the arrows turn invisible right before hitting the target. Doing a backflip, our brave warrior dodges the shots and the freezing breath. With quick thinking, he deduces that he needs to focus on the archer to end this advantage quickly. Running like a blur, the agile boy narrowly escapes the extreme flames that destroy the ground. Firing wildly, the cruel villain challenges the young man, wanting to see how long he can run. Focusing all his speed, the dungeon leader runs, narrowly dodging his demise. But the thunderous roar of the flying creature echoes across the battlefield, alerting the boy. By accident, one of the invisible arrows ends up hitting and injuring the dragon's own back. Seeing his partner hurt, the wicked hunter just insults the beast, calling it useless. The mythical creature groans in agony, feeling the sharp tip embedded directly in its flesh. Totally outraged, our hero questions the thug's malicious attitude toward his own ally. Staring at the boy with disgust, the wrongdoer makes it very clear that he never considered the beast a friend. Being a piece of human trash, he states that monsters are just disposable tools. Laughing heartily, he pulls the collar, hurting the winged being even more, who suffers silently on the ground. Faced with so much cruelty, the guardian recalls the sad reality of creatures in that world. The evil of greedy humans turns the lives of poor little creatures into a living nightmare. Remembering his happy days surrounded by the little wolves, the young man feels his chest tighten. Watching the dragon desperately trying to free itself, rage begins to consume the hero's mind. In a heroic impulse, the young master charges forward swiftly, leaving the enemies completely perplexed. The leader of the thugs is extremely confused, not understanding the prey's suicidal move. Preparing his weapon again, the villain aims at the boy, wanting to finish the job once and for all. The hero quickly advances on the leader of the thugs to begin his inevitable counter-attack. With his fists glowing, he firmly states that he does not see creatures as mere tools. With that, a powerful punch lands squarely in the hunter's stomach, sending his body flying into the air. The impact of the blow was so strong that it completely destroyed the villain's crossbow in the blink of an eye. Maintaining a serene posture, the boy questions what his fallen adversary's next move would be. Staring at the monster, the wrongdoer is completely paralyzed with terror, not knowing how to react. Desperate, the big guy yells, ordering the two dragons to attack the protagonist immediately. But the winged beasts just look at each other, very confused, completely ignoring their master's orders. At that moment, the red magical seals on the animals' necks begin to glow intensely. Furious, the human curses his pets, calling them both useless trash for not obeying. Tired of so much mistreatment, the giant birds fly quickly toward their own owner. Joining their energies, the two heads prepare a devastating attack against the cowardly hunter. Seeing the fury of his former prey, the man backs away, stumbling as he begs for mercy. Unfortunately for him, a double blast of fire and ice hits his body without any mercy. The incredible power of the blow freezes half of the mercenary's body, leaving him completely immobilized. The mystical birds roar fiercely, showing they would no longer accept being treated like slaves. Soon, the invader's entire body is transformed into a huge, shining ice statue in the middle of the woods. A system screen appears, confirming that the archer failed miserably to complete the challenge. With that, another notice flashes, informing our guardian that he can activate his special technique again. Without hesitation, the young man decides to use Rebirth to absorb the defeated human's abilities. Clenching his fists tightly, the leader invokes the magical power, activating the attribute theft. The blue panel confirms that the Phantom Strike ability has been successfully copied to his arsenal. Feeling the energy course through his bones, the young man is amazed by his newly acquired strength. He realizes his power allows him to steal the best techniques from any invading adventurer. At that, the two-headed dragons stare at the boy, completely shocked by his overwhelming strength. Still wary of people, the giant birds growl softly, maintaining a defensive posture. The master of the forest notices the animals' fear and his eyes widen, understanding their distress. Raising his hands peacefully, he asks them to calm down, stating that he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Being very gentle, the young man apologizes for scaring the creatures during the intense battle. In a friendly tone, he assures them that he would never raise a hand to fight the two little creatures. The protagonist deduces that to the birds, he must seem like just a very bizarre and scary monster. Suddenly, a golden glow flashes, revealing a new technique exclusive to the dungeon leader. Very curious, the boy observes the floating screen, admitting he had never seen anything like it before. The message says that he can add new inhabitants to live permanently on that floor. Quite surprised by the revelation, the young man smiles, excited to have gained a second useful magic. With this divine ability, he realizes he can recruit any creature to his own team. The system automatically asks if he wishes to adopt the large dragon as an allied monster. Shocked by the possibility, the guardian deduces that he can turn the beasts into his new guards. The name of his miraculous power is Blessing of the Guardian Spirit, shining in front of his face. He reflects that recruiting these beings would bring a huge advantage to his forest's security. After all, having the support of such strong fire and ice would be the perfect boost to defend the place. But the leader knows that the bad humans would keep coming back to try and steal valuable items. Being very kind, the young man informs them that the villain is gone, and the birds are completely free to leave. Staring at the boy with their colorful eyes, the winged beings just listen to his words in silence. The trauma of the past still haunts the creatures, reminding them of how they were treated as mere objects. That fear of being hurt was still alive in the tired eyes of the tormented creatures. The guardian reflects that he could force their obedience using the magic system if he really wanted to. However, the dragon's docile expression shows that they don't sense any malice coming from the new master. Gaining confidence, the two heads take slow steps, wanting to get closer to the kind boy. Smiling friendly, the young man gets emotional, noticing that the beasts have decided to live in his dungeon. The majestic birds agree, shaking their feathers, confirming their loyalty to their kind new friend. Relieved by the positive response, the protagonist thanks them for their trust, welcoming his new partners. Immediately, the green screen confirms the power's activation, successfully adding the new residents. A golden glow envelopes the dragon's enormous body, symbolizing the magical contract of eternal protection. Another panel appears, resetting the invader counter, signaling that peace has returned to the area. With the hunter's expulsion, the creature's wounds begin to heal on their own quickly. The soft rustle in the grass attracts the chief's attention, who turns his head to check the green bushes. Dozens of hurried little paws run through the brush, indicating that the calm has finally attracted the curious ones. Full of joy, the cute little wolves jump out of the thicket, running towards the hero with great excitement. Completely surrounded by the balls of fur, the master smiles with relief, asking if everyone is okay. The small wolf pups jump for joy, celebrating their new master's victory. At that, the guardian smiles gently while petting his adorable furry pets. One of the little creatures gets emotional, reporting that everyone was saved thanks to the new leader's strength. Being very affectionate, the protagonist pets the little animal's head in a comforting way. With a beautiful smile on his face, the young master thanks his companions for their loyalty. Suddenly, one of the adorable pups gives a very excited little hop, showing its gratitude. The leader of the forest laughs, joining in the fun as the wolves play around him. Watching all that cuteness, the young man is extremely satisfied with the peaceful atmosphere. But he soon recalls his dark past, where he had no strength to defend anyone. Returning to the present, the boy hugs his knees, very happy to have ensured their safety. Staring into the distance with his magical eyes, the guardian finally feels that he has taken a step forward. Suddenly, the giant birds stare at him, stating that despite his appearance, he is not human. The flying beasts observe the young man attentively, noticing his true monster essence. The young man is completely shocked, his jaw dropping as he hears the creatures speaking to him. With the calm returning, the leader admires the enormous forest trees illuminated by the sun. Thoughtfully, the protagonist reflects on a dangerous warning he heard from the twin dragons. The winged beast reveals that the group of invaders is known as the Terrible Dragon Hunters. These cruel mercenaries hunt strong creatures to use as weapons and slice up the weaker ones. Surprised by the information, the boy deduces that these wrongdoers will return to that floor. The flying partners confirm that this guild's evil leader will soon arrive to attack them. He is warned that the enemy commander's strength is on a completely different power level. Looking at his new friends, the young man notices that they carry horrible memories of this torment. In a very heavy atmosphere, the winged twins lower their heads, remembering their agonizing past. Being very understanding, the master thanks the beasts for sharing this information. Taking command of the situation, the leader raises his finger, having a brilliant idea to defend the place. The young man orders all creatures to stay at the back of the woods while he serves as a lookout. Analyzing the floor map, the hero explains that he plans to observe the invaders from the top of a tree. Hearing the bold plan, the mythical birds fall silent, unable to believe the master's bravery. At that, the leader lifts his favorite pet, assuring it that everything would be fine in the end. Being very optimistic, the guardian pets the creature's fur, swearing he would be completely fine. Hiding high in the branches, the young man focuses his mind, activating the system's luminous screens. Reading the description of his special power, he confirms that he can copy the magic of downed invaders. With a cold look, the protagonist realizes that the more enemies he takes down, the stronger he will become. His main goal now is to completely wipe out this wretched guild of mercenaries. Relaxing on the giant tree branch, our master patiently waits for the prey to arrive. Suddenly, all the calm in the forest ends as the animals sense a malevolent energy. A large red screen flashes in the air, warning that new challengers have entered the green dungeon. The immense stone gate swings open violently, confirming the start of another invasion. Several muscular hunters step into the brush, showing off their sharp swords and dragon marks. The group walks arrogantly, commenting on the escape of the villain who took the rare birds. Hidden among the leaves, the young master observes the entire group, breaking into a cold sweat due to their large numbers. Worried about the numerical disadvantage, the young man confesses he's never faced so many people at once. Ignoring the danger, the thugs start a cruel bet to see who can eliminate the most little critters there. Filled with hatred, the dungeon leader clenches his fists, furious with their bloody game. An immense mystical magic flows through the hero's shadowy body, showing that he will have no mercy. Determined to defend his home, our guardian immediately activates his phantom technique. Meanwhile, the troop of humans walks calmly through the woods, feeling like they own the world. Preparing the ambush, the brilliant boy uses his stealth power, focusing on disarming the targets. Firing precise beams from the tree, the protagonist focuses his attacks directly on the enemy weapons. With a direct hit, the hero's powerful magic easily shatters a human's sword. Surprised by the sudden attack, the mercenaries freeze, questioning if that was magic. Being ignorant, the burly henchman scoffs at the fear, stating that the place was very weak. Hiding up high, the young warrior reasons that humans depend on items to fight well. At that, he remembers that the magic in this world depends entirely on the power coming from weapons. Realizing this major disadvantage, the boy focuses his glowing eyes to execute a fatal plan. Immediately, one of the cowardly invaders concentrates energy into his spear to counter the ambush. However, a very fast beam cuts through the wind and breaks the spear instantly, startling the mercenary. With great agility, our master advances, breaking all the items to neutralize the enemy troop. Cruelly, the energy blades shatter the thugs' weapons, turning them into useless pieces. Completely terrified, the mercenaries panic because they can't see the destructive shots. At that, one of the mercenaries activates an enhanced vision magic and locates the hero in the branches. With this, the group realizes that magical abilities aren't just for causing brute damage. Immediately, a bald swordsman swings his weapon, activating the wind blade technique. Swiftly, the greenish slash flies toward the tree, forcing the young master to dodge. Focusing entirely on defense, the boy concludes that he needs to concentrate only on evading. At that moment, the hero lands violently on the ground, kicking up dust everywhere. Suddenly furious, the invasion leader orders all his henchmen to attack at once. Surrounded by enemies, the guardian maintains a firm stance, determined to destroy every weapon there. Using his incredible agility, the young man easily shatters the entire arsenal of those thugs. Surprised, the brutes are paralyzed with shock as they see their swords turn to dust. Faced with that overwhelming strength, The wrongdoers swallow hard, unable to believe what they were seeing. Breaking into a cold sweat, the hunters realize that the young man is definitely not a weak little monster. Trembling with terror, one of the invaders gives up on the hunt, stating that he was leaving. Infected by the intense fear, the group panics, and they all start running without looking back. In a true race for their lives, the henchmen run, crying, toward the enormous exit. Soon, a purple screen appears, reporting that several adventurers have abandoned the mission. Seeing that pathetic scene, the hero is surprised by the rivals' quick surrender. Suddenly, the system glows in front of him, revealing that the boss magic has been activated. Quite confused, the boy's eyes widen, not understanding the reason for the sudden warning. The glowing window informs him that he has acquired the vision and the strong wind blade magic. Filled with astonishment, the protagonist realizes that he really did steal all the humans' techniques. Thinking very quickly, the young master smiles as he understands the situation. He understands that fleeing the labyrinth is basically the same as failing the challenge. With that, any invader who manages to escape ends up leaving their powers behind for him. Watching the escape, some archers curse their cowardly partners for running so soon. Annoyed, the archer prepares his weapon, remembering that the place was just a low-level area. Maintaining great composure, the guardian faces the last remaining enemies in the woods. At that, the evil archer activates a flaming arrow, planning to set the entire forest on fire. Firing a huge fireball, the thug laughs, stating that he would take a lot of meat from there. Hiding in the bushes, the poor little wolf pups panic at that immense heat. Gritting his teeth, the master jumps quickly, promising he wouldn't let that happen. Replicating the enemy's powers, the hero creates an intense cutting gust using his tail. Soon, the wind slash collides with the flames, exploding the enemy attack in mid-air. With no time to react, the hunter just cries out in pain as he feels his arm being injured. With a muffled scream, the wrongdoer collapses violently, leaving his partner terrified. Desperate, the remaining henchman is stunned to see the creature using a human technique. Walking through the mystical smoke, the young man radiates an extremely threatening presence. And with a sharp gaze, he leaves a warning that his dungeon is no longer a hunting ground. Feeling the mortal danger, the brutes tremble from head to toe, breaking into a cold sweat. Crawling on the damp ground, the big guys lose all their composure and cry like babies. Frightened, the wrongdoers flee as fast as they can, seeking the salvation of the exit. As they pass through the gap, the immense stone doors close, echoing with a thunderous sound. Finally, silence dominates the entire area as the Guardian's dark energy fades away. Taking a deep breath, the young man reflects on the whole intense battle, feeling a great sense of relief. In his sad memories, he laments his weak phase where he would easily lose to a single human. But overcoming the past, the boy celebrates having protected the pack from the whole group by himself. With a sweet and super excited smile, the leader clenches his fists, happy with his great victory. Reading the security screen, the young man receives the relieved little creatures who run to hug him. Changing scenes, we see a secret base where a lord mocks the failure of the villain's mission. Drinking his wine, the leader of the hunters says he doesn't even remember those useless subordinates. Being extremely cruel, the great dark leader declares that failures are just meat. The rich man in purple laughs heartily, asking if his partner fed his mythical beast. However, the sinister conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the thugs returning in defeat. Totally scared, the men warn that the forest has become an unbeatable place. The terrifying villain's sadistic expression fades as he fails to understand his henchmen's panic. On their knees, the fugitives cry, begging for mercy as they confess the trauma of the dungeon. The big guy reports in terror that the mysterious monster attacked by manipulating numerous spells. Recalling our hero's threatening expression, the man swears that it was not normal at all. Even after hearing the reports, the evil master insults the men for making up so many lies. Emitting a demonic red energy, the detestable warrior calls them all useless trash. The cruel villain threatens his henchmen by showing the enormous shadow of a magical beast with glowing red eyes. At that, the gigantic beast opens its mouth wide, full of sharp teeth, ready to devour them all without mercy. Completely in shock, the big guys tremble, sweating coldly as they realize they've become that creature's dinner. The nobleman laughs sadistically, sipping his wine as he watches the poor hunters become the monster's snack. Satisfied with the bizarre feast, the rich man in purple states that this whole story sounds very strange. He comments that a low-level place like that should never have a powerful boss hidden inside. Taking another sip, The Lord suspects the whole situation and thinks the reports might be a big lie. However, he recalls that the archer and the winged beast have not yet returned from that exploration in the weak dungeon. With a greedy smile, the evil old man shows great interest in the mysteries of that labyrinth. Being focused on profits, he deduces that rare and unknown creatures could fetch an absurd fortune. With his interest piqued, the rich nobleman suggests that the great leader go investigate the place personally. The wrongdoer gives a demonic smile, agreeing with the idea as he loves a good, dangerous hunt. Making a cruel toast, the supreme hunter demands to receive double the profits from this new bloody mission. Back in the tranquility of the mystical forest, we see the sun shining brightly over the ancient ruins. Resting on a high branch, our master watches his adorable furry little wolf barking excitedly down below. With its little eyes shining with excitement, the small pet runs, catching its kind owner's attention. Curious about all the commotion, the boy jumps nimbly from the tree, wanting to see what the little creature found. Landing softly on the green ground, the guardian approaches the pup, who is rolling in the grass asking for pets. But the pet soon gets up and runs quickly to the back of the dark woods, wanting to guide its leader. Seeing the little animal's haste, the purple-eyed young man deduces that something strange happened in that region. Following his faithful little friend, the hero walks among the giant trees illuminated by the place's magical light. Observing the unfamiliar scenery, the protagonist comments that they have never explored this deep before. At that, the two arrive in a secret area illuminated by dozens of round mushrooms that glow in the dark. Having a nostalgic moment, the young man recalls that it was right here that he found his new family. Suddenly, the cute pet barks again, drawing the master's gaze to something beyond the fungi. Staring at the back of the cave, the hero's eye glows, and he is completely shocked by the surprise. To his complete astonishment, a gigantic, gleaming golden door was hidden at the back of the woods. The size of that mysterious entrance is so absurd that it makes the boy look like an ant in front of it. Utterly perplexed, the guardian wonders where such a majestic door came from inside his home. The little wolf wags its tail very excitedly, while the young man is certain that this structure is very new. Driven by infinite curiosity, the young man extends his glowing arm, wanting to touch the door's magic. Gently touching the divine surface, a strong ripple of mystical energy travels throughout the entire place. In the blink of an eye, the structure reacts to the touch and emits a blinding flash, making the hero back away. Shielding his face from the light, the boy notices the system validating his identity as the boss of the place. A huge blue screen appears, floating and announcing that the mysterious level up system has been activated. Soon, a reddish energy crosses the air, revealing various hidden pieces of information about that dungeon. After the incredible flash, the large golden door remains locked, only emanating a faint magical aura. Hugging his little furry friend to protect him, the hero breathes a sigh of relief, noticing the tremor has stopped. However, red panels begin to flash, warning that the evolution requirements have not been met. Analyzing the rules, the young man deduces that he needs to complete specific missions to open the seal. The message details that this secret floor will only be unlocked when the dungeon ranks up. Seeing the difficult requirements, he gets confirmation that the labyrinth urgently needs to evolve. With his sharp mind, the protagonist quickly connects the dots and understands the grand scale of this challenge. At that exact moment, the two enormous mystical birds descend swiftly, cutting through the greenish skies. Welcoming his new companions, the leader and the little wolf share a beautiful, friendly smile with the beasts. Being very communicative, the young man shares the news, revealing that their home can grow much more. However, he becomes apprehensive, remembering that most dungeons never change their power levels. Confirming his suspicion, one of the birds shakes its head, swearing it has never heard of such craziness. Sitting peacefully on the grass, the group of beasts wonders what would change with this evolution. Staring at the giant gate, our master considers the possibility that his home is incredibly special. Reading the message about the unexplored sector, the boy feels a strong curiosity burning in his chest. The image of that gleaming divine entrance indicates a mystical territory that no human has dared to enter. Full of excitement, the guardian reflects on the countless mysteries that await behind that wall. Being very cute, the leader pets his pet's fur, thanking it for sniffing out that secret. Suddenly, his vision undergoes a magical distortion, seeming to dive into the dark depths of the mysterious portal. The formidable energy of that locked place breaks its own chains, beginning the release of the seal. Meanwhile, in the safe part of the forest, the boy relaxes, sitting on the branches with his beasts. Seeking to create an emotional bond, the kind master gently asks the beasts to reveal their names. But the beautiful birds just stare at the protagonist in deep silence, maintaining their old distrust. Feeling awkward, the young man waves his hands, assuring them it's okay to keep that secret for now. Suddenly, the boy gets a huge fright, sensing a dangerous magic approaching. At that, the giant birds warn that the strong trimmer is the main gate opening. Looking at the dungeon entrance, the young man deduces that a new challenger has just arrived. A gigantic red screen flashes, warning that the security area has been breached. With heavy steps, the enormous paw of a monstrous beast steps firmly on the green grass. Riding a black dragon, the fearsome mercenary leader announces he will destroy that pathetic place. Being very greedy, the level 66 villain plans to sell everything he finds. Hiding in the shadows, the hero freezes in fear, realizing that the real boss has arrived. Observing the big guy's malevolent aura, the young man concludes that he is absurdly powerful. But remembering all the past suffering, he swears he will stop this nightmare right now. Filled with courage, the guardian concentrates all his magic, conjuring energy spikes. Gathering even more power, the brilliant master prepares a completely devastating sneak attack. Gritting his teeth, he decides to use all his stolen abilities to end the invasion. With iron determination, the protagonist leaps from the tree, swiftly heading toward the danger. The system activates the phantom ray power, firing a destructive blast at the villain. However, the experienced hunter raises his giant sword, blocking the attack without difficulty. Utterly perplexed, the boy can't believe his best move was defended like that. With a wicked smile, the mercenary scoffs at our hero's ambush attempt. Staring at the trees, the cruel man questions why his prey is hiding. Breaking into a cold sweat, the young man realizes in terror that the thug already knows his exact location. At that, the hunter leader laughs, calling the skinny boy the useless boss of the dungeon. The red-caped lord looks at the top of the labyrinth, feeling great contempt for them. Suddenly, the warrior's eyes widen as he notices the presence of his former pets. Seeing the birds without their chains, the big guy questions how they removed their collars. Being very arrogant, the mercenary rests his weapon on his shoulder with a very furious look. Totally sadistic, he warns that rebellious tools are worthless trash. Hearing that terrible threat, the mystical beasts tremble in pure terror, recalling the pain. At that moment, the brave young man steps in front, defending his friends, saying they are not objects. But the villain just laughs heartily, finding it ridiculous that a weak monster is protecting the animals. Maintaining his posture, the hero stares at the enemy seriously, while the mercenary finds it all hilarious. Without wasting time, the cowardly hunter orders all his henchmen to take out the group immediately. Seeing the humans advance, the two giant birds are completely cornered and distressed. The enormous riding dragon opens its scary maw, charging an elemental strike. With a thunderous roar, the beast fires a powerful blast of ice and freezing flames. Right after, another lethal fire shot is launched at the small creatures there. Surprisingly, the allied birds step in front and repel the beams with their own powers. The guardian is amazed to see the bravery and brutal strength of his beloved beasts. The clash of magics creates a huge explosion, forcing the henchmen to retreat in fear. Taking advantage of the opening, the protagonist thanks them for their help and activates his wind blade. Being very intelligent, he decides to combine two magical strikes, creating a new attack. The mystical ability merges, generating swift slashes that make dangerous curves in the air. Catching everyone by surprise, the greenish beams hit the mercenaries, injuring the troop. Extremely irritated by the hero's audacity, the lord vows to annihilate the traitorous birds first. Full of hatred, the villain orders his large pet to eliminate the birds in a single attack. Swiftly, the huge black beast advances through the skies, ready to demolish the defenseless prey. Giving no chance to escape, the giant dragon mercilessly attacks the poor magical bird's body. Feeling terrible pain, the little creature groans in agony, completely in shock from the blow. Showing a glowing ring, the hunter states that monster submission is always absolute. With a psychopathic look, the lord raises his hand, controlling the hostage bird with his sadistic jewel. Using the artifact's power, the cursed villain forces the injured bird to attack its own sibling. Witnessing its twin's suffering, the other bird falls into complete despair. The boy desperately shouts, telling his friend to dodge the next imminent attack. However, the emotional shock paralyzes the little creature, who can't move a single feather. Cruelly, the villain's mount opens its giant jaws, moving to swallow the frozen bird. Accepting its tragic fate, the mystical beast just cries, knowing it won't be able to escape. In a brilliant heroic act, the young master jumps, pulling his companion out of the danger zone. Falling to the damp earth, the bird whimpers in pain and realizes with relief that it's still very much alive. However, it freezes in horror upon seeing the protagonist taking all that monstrous damage. Furious, the enemy chief orders his men not to let any of those insects escape. Holding his allied bird, the injured hero tries to resist while the creature trembles in terror. Seeing the terror in the twins' eyes, the young man apologizes for reviving this fear. With that, the leader tells the two beasts to flee quickly to the back of the forest. Shocked by the order, the birds question if the master would fight the group alone. At that, the mercenaries locate the boy in the tree and order to shoot at him immediately. Remaining calm, the guardian just assures his pets that everything would be fine. With a confident smile, the young man says he would wait there until they were free. Hearing these kind words, the mystical creatures are deeply moved. Without wasting time, the hero leaps from the branch, unleashing all his intense magical aura. Seeing the prey, the brutes advance furiously, wanting to take down the dungeon boss. Determined to protect his home, the protagonist vows to end this fight himself. Activating his vision magic, the young warrior focuses and realizes there are 10 targets left. Using his incredible agility, he combines wind attacks with swift phantom strikes. A true deadly dance unfolds as the invaders are easily sliced up. Soon, the henchmen collapse to the ground, completely astonished by the monster's brute force. With the path cleared, the guardian lifts his cold gaze, announcing that only one remains. The battlefield becomes tense as the boy faces the burly lord head-on. Being extremely arrogant, the supreme villain scoffs at the situation, calling the boy trash. At that, the wrongdoer orders his giant dragon to attack and activates a buffing power. In a frightening scene, the immense black beast opens its mouth, grabbing one of the henchmen. Seeing that madness, our master's eyes widen in complete shock. By swallowing its own troops, the beast gains a reddish aura and becomes more dangerous. The poor protagonist freezes in terror, witnessing such cruelty toward humans. Cruelly, the mythical beast continues to devour the henchmen, who scream in desperation. Covering his face, the young man can't believe he is sacrificing his own men. With each bizarre snack, the shadowy mount absorbs more energy, becoming super strong. The impact of the beast stepping on the ground creates enormous cracks from its incredible force. Leaping backward, the hero reasons that the enemy dragon is only getting tougher. On top of that, the creature's sharp claws grow, revealing a much greater weight. Roaring violently, the beast reaches its maximum size thanks to the devouring magic. Suddenly, the giant monster prepares a fatal attack, concentrating light in its mouth. A sphere of pure, lethal energy forms, illuminating the entire scene with its glow. Feeling the immense heat, the guardian panics, as that would destroy his home. Without hesitation, the young man charges at full speed, determined to stop that attack in time. However, his mind works quickly, trying to find a way to stop something so big. At that moment, the brilliant hero's eyes widen as he has a very risky idea. Remembering his allies, the young man deduces that breaking the red collar would be the key. Concentrating power in his hands, the master activates his wind blade to break the seal. Swiftly, he fires a greenish beam straight at the huge black beast's neck. Noticing the trick, the mercenary lord moves with absolutely absurd speed. In a perfect defense, the villain uses his giant sword and easily deflects the magic. Shock takes over the protagonist as he sees his devastating attack stopped like that. Being snarky, the wrongdoer warns that a low-ranked piece of trash could never do that there. With a frightening smile, the enemy leader activates a magic to shield the collar. The situation becomes very tense, and the purple-eyed boy starts to sweat coldly from the danger. Without wasting time, the gigantic beast spits out its devastating attack toward the boy. Shaken, the hero reflects that if he doesn't stop that beast, his sanctuary will be obliterated. At that, he confirms that the collar is indeed the weakness, since the villain defended it with everything he had. But getting past that tough lord would be an almost impossible mission to accomplish. Gathering all his courage, the master activates the curved blade, vowing to destroy the control. Being relentless, the burly warrior prepares his defense, denying any advance. A huge red explosion dominates the field when the earthquake magic is unleashed. The lord's immense power creates a giant crater and sends our hero flying. Laughing evilly, the villain watches the fallen young man as the dragon attacks. Seeing the fatal glow approaching, the guardian freezes completely, filled with despair. Mercilessly, the blast of pure destruction is launched, threatening to burn all the brush. The young master plants his feet on the ground, certain that there was no more time to hesitate. Focusing his brilliant mind, he decides to combine the phantom strike with the stolen magic. As feathers fly through the air, the boy vows to protect his precious home and his friends there. Surprisingly, a bluish magical slash cuts through the wind, deflecting the beast's power. The mercenary gets a gigantic shock, seeing his ultimate fire brutally stopped. At that, the young master's eyes widen, completely shocked by what he just witnessed. To his surprise, the two allied birds fly bravely, wanting to help on the front line. Firing energy beams, the pets shout for the hero to focus only on breaking the collar. With impressive power, the mystical duo repels the giant dragon's force to buy time. Seeing that futile resistance, the supreme villain becomes extremely irritated with his opponents. Being ruthless, the burly hunter swings his heavy sword, wanting to slice the rebellious birds. And with great fury, the coward cruelly attacks, ordering the prey to accept their fatal destiny. Observing the Lord's evil, the guardian focuses all his power with unshakable determination. Determined to end that nightmare, the young man transforms into an incredibly fast blur of energy. Using all his speed, he charges directly at the beast's neck without any hesitation. But unfortunately, the wrongdoer's brutal blow hits the small allies, causing them great pain. The clash of magics creates such a strong impact that even the tough hunter is thrown far away. Seizing the perfect opening, our protagonist launches a powerful whip with his blue tail. Completely caught off guard, the arrogant villain just falls from the sky, unable to defend against the swift assault. With that, the evil human submission ring finally cracks, revealing the spell has been broken. Terrified, the Lord stammers, unable to believe that a mere monster managed to destroy his artifact. The ring was supposed to be an item of absolute command, making it impossible for creatures to break the jewel. However, our brave warrior ignored the rules and shattered the oppressive object into 1,000 pieces. Blaming his bad luck, the dragon hunter wonders what kind of absurd creature that boss was. Being extremely stubborn, the big guy summons his threatening energy, holding his weapon firmly. With a psychopathic smile, the wrongdoer vows to destroy the entire place without a trace. In a final assault, the cruel human launches a deadly attack at the boy, who promptly defends. Surprisingly, the invader's giant sword can't handle the pressure and begins to crack badly. Passing through the broken weapon, the swift young man advances from above with a brutal blow directly at his opponent. Thinking of his cute little friends, the dungeon leader gains strength, wanting to protect his beautiful home. Gathering all the magic in his body, the hero shouts that this whole invasion would end right there. And with incomparable agility, the boy hits the cowardly hunter, delivering a crushing impact. The magical shock generates an immense explosion of light, brightening the entire dark forest in the blink of an eye. Soon, calm returns to the green environment as the small creatures peak at the end of the fight. Panting from exhaustion, our hero kneels on the grass to check if his partner birds were injured. Crawling on the ground, the defeated lord complains, insulting the animals, calling them all useless trash. Foaming with hatred, the bleeding man tries to get up, forbidding the little monster from feeling pity for him. But suddenly, a monstrous shadow swallows the henchman, warning that his end has come. Facing its former owner, the giant beast states that he spent his life sucking the strength from others. The large dragon reveals it lived in suffering, as it could never fight against the power of those chains. Taking the blame for all the damage it caused, the creature decides to take responsibility for itself. Realizing it's about to become dinner, the malicious big guy panics, cursing his beast. Sweating coldly and with no way out, the coward screams desperately, vowing to take the beast down before disappearing. Watching that revenge, the guardian sighs in relief as the panel announces the end of the challenge. Roaring loudly to the sky, the great mystical beast concludes that the entire invasion has finally ended there. At that moment, a magical notice appears, allowing the hero to recruit the new huge monster to his group. Having this valuable chance, the young man faces the giant animal with a gentle, admiring look. Being very affectionate, the master explains his recruiting power and asks for the big guy's choice. Maintaining a calm posture, the imposing dragon thanks him for the offer, confessing that it needs to leave. Smiling gently, our protagonist doesn't try to force it and accepts the request amicably. But the winged partners question if the young man is sure about losing the chance to have a strong ally. The hero understands the creature's past suffering and vows that he would never imprison it like the cruel villains. With a cheerful laugh, The boy concludes that the animal must have dreams to live for in the outside world. Admired by his kindness, the big dragon announces that its goal is to free the other enslaved flying creatures. The beast plans to save the countless creatures that still live trapped in the filthy cages of those thugs. Recalling its captivity, the monster states that it was used as a simple, cruel, and destructive machine. The giant says it spent its days swallowing innocence, and that deeply hurt its animal pride. Beating its powerful wings, the immense creature takes flight, wanting to correct the mistakes of its past. Waving a lot, the furry pets say goodbye to their former companion, wishing it good luck on its journey. And so, the majestic beast takes off into the skies, seeking a free life far from the cruel magical chains. Leaving a final thank you, the great mystical partner disappears brilliantly through the dungeon doors. Staring at the bluish ceiling, the twin birds are happy, realizing that the enormous beast has found peace. Very pleased with the outcome, our brave guardian breathes a sigh of relief for having done the right thing. Turning his head, the gentle leader asks if the two little friends don't also wish to leave. Being shy, the young man understands if the two wanted to disappear from that crazy place and recover their strength. Touched by his words, the guardian smiles sweetly, hearing the birds ask if he still remembers their names. With great pride, the twin birds formally introduce themselves, revealing their names are Ada and his sister, Yada. Overjoyed with the news, our hero gives a genuine smile, thanking his pets for their trust. Suddenly, a giant golden screen appears, floating and informing that the dungeon's evolution system has begun. An intense and magical flash blinds the two little birds as the panel shows the home's low level. The system continues to shine brightly and declares that all the crazy requirements for evolution have been met. Completely shocked by the sudden information, the purple-eyed boy's face widens, not understanding the madness. Suddenly, a gigantic pillar of light cuts through the world's skies, officially declaring the level increase. At that, another mystical window floats on the wind, revealing that a super, powerful monster from the past has been eliminated. Being hit by all that sacred light, the young guardian watches the entire place undergoing changes. With that, the system's voice echoes in his mind, confirming that the magical house has ranked up to an E-rank dungeon. Completely lost in the middle of the gust, the boy and the mystical birds look around, totally dumbfounded. The shock increases when the master notices that the terrain itself and the enormous stone cliffs have been altered. Seeing pebbles falling from nowhere, the leader reflects on the chance that the ruins' outer walls have fallen. Very confused by that gigantic event, our hero focuses his mind, wondering how this magic works. Suddenly, the white pup appears, falling from the skies, screaming in fear towards its strong companions. Quickly, the agile guardian catches the small pet in his arms, relieved that nothing bad happened there. The adorable little wolf cries agitatedly, moving its paws, wanting to convey a big message to its new master. Being affectionate, the young man apologizes, stating he doesn't understand the pet's language, and just gives it a pat. Seeing the creature's cuteness, the hero sets it down on the damp grass, asking the adorable little thing to show the way. With a determined look, our protagonist feels in his heart that his pet's urgency hides something vital. Being very brave, the leader summons his divine beasts, wanting to explore the depths of that luminous forest. Peeking from behind a gigantic tree, the boy soon notices the chubby creatures glowing in the darkness. To his immense surprise, the magical mushrooms that once seemed like mere plants were now walking around the area. The small green fungi had little feet and very chubby faces, hopping happily on that sacred ground. Several blue screens pop up in the Guardian's vision, identifying those cuties as level 1 magical beings. With his jaw dropped, our adventurer can't believe that those stationary little things were living monsters. However, the young man's astonished expression turns to pure curiosity as he notices something moving in the background. He approaches slowly and is fascinated to observe the gigantic golden door emanating a very strong light. The floating panel declares that the evolution requirements have broken the old protective seal, freeing the entrance. Staring at the blinding glow, the purple-eyed leader concludes that the secret, unexplored sector has just opened. With a genuine laugh, the young master gives his little wolf a nice pat for the great discovery. Surrounded by the adorable mushrooms, the hero walks calmly toward the mysterious, unknown light. The small green inhabitants make way in the large passage, watching their mystical guardian advance slowly. Looking deep into the darkness, the young man silently reflects on whether his dungeon wants him to go there. Filled with courage, He deduces that the inhabitants of that secret sector are surely allies and decides to trust them. Holding his little furry friend firmly, the protagonist decides to enter the place, wanting to uncover its secrets. Accompanied by the flying birds, the leader descends a long stone staircase filled with friendly magical fungi. Arriving in the dark underground, the boy comes across a smooth wall with no exit, but notices something shining in the middle. Focusing his mystical gaze, he finds a strange mound of loose earth hiding a divine item deep inside. Surprisingly, the chubby mushrooms jump in front of the dirt, wanting to help with the big excavation. In a very funny magic trick, one of the fungi turns its cute little head upside down, becoming a shovel. Quickly, the team of level 1 inhabitants digs through the rubble with extremely enviable agility. Very impressed with the effort, the hero thanks his adorable new workers for their kindness. Suddenly, a beautiful, gleaming golden chest emerges from the crater, offered by the labyrinth system. The blinding glow amazes our guardian's eyes, and he calls it the Sixth Sacred Ark, with a goofy smile. The world's message radiates on the ceiling, confirming the achievement of the reward for defeating the great boss. Faced with all that divine glory, the young master concludes, shocked, that his reincarnated world has become a game. Sharing in the extreme happiness, the two magical birds flap their little wings, celebrating the first loot. Very euphoric, the creatures deduce that continuing to win challenges will yield immensely valuable treasures. However, the protagonist's brilliant mind reasons that big prizes would attract very cruel wrongdoers. With trembling eyes, the boy understands the high risk, fearing the invasion of worse monsters and annoying hunters. Being more practical, the birds calm the master's anxiety, suggesting they enjoy the glory of the current prize. Taking the lead, the brave hero asks the little ones to keep their distance in case it's a trap. Concentrating his mana, the young man extends his spiritual arm, slowly opening the ancient, super heavy golden lid. An incredibly radiant light fills the basement's shadows as the mysterious divine content is revealed. To everyone's surprise, the grand reward is a mystical golden artifact with a very sharp, pointed shape. Holding the floating item, our protagonist analyzes the rare object, stating that its power is unimaginable. Immediately, a large status screen reflects on the boy's face, revealing the wonderful, unique details. Awed by the valuable find, the guardian smiles excitedly for having won his first well-earned prize. The boy's eyes widen, impressed by that new, mysterious shining energy. At that, the curious birds question if that absurd power would be useful in battles. Holding the golden item, the hero states that the accessory's magic would be very strong. However, the young man becomes worried, fearing that using this force might hurt his furry allies. Without giving many details, the guardian hides the treasure, apologizing to the curious bird. He reflects that he won't use this mysterious tool, because he still doesn't know its real effects. Thoughtfully, the young man realizes how the magical evolution of that floor hides many little secrets. To make matters worse, the level-up system seemed to be testing the guardian's true potential. With that, the leader concludes that he will need to create protection for everyone without using the rare jewel. Having a brilliant idea, the young master calls the little wolves, saying he would ask for their help. Hearing their owner's call, the magical little mushrooms shake their heads, full of doubt. Then, the hero uses the bird's wind magic, revealing that he plans to alter the terrain itself. With an excited smile, the protagonist announces the plan to build a perfect shelter. Quickly, all the cute little monsters begin to dig holes, following the master's orders. Using the stones from the past evolution, the giant birds pile everything up, forming a base. Being very smart, the inhabitants camouflage the entire entrance using various green leaves. With a giant smile, the boy is super excited about the result of their group effort. Under the great ancient tree, the monster's ultra-secret hideout was finished. At that, the system's magic map is updated, revealing the new construction in the mystical dungeon. Completely euphoric, the hero thanks the little creatures for their strength, while the birds boast with pride. Excited, the mystical bird asks if they can enter the place, which the guardian immediately confirms. Showing the cave, the young man explains that the tree's roots would shield the house against dangers. In addition, the place has a hidden escape tunnel in case any cruel human finds them there. Analyzing his new home, the master notices that the dark environment has a somewhat cold climate. But watching the pets relaxing on the damp earth, the young man concludes that the place is warm. Very happy with the protection, the leader assures that everyone could sleep peacefully that night. After a little while, the entire pack of cute wolves passes out from exhaustion inside the shielded base. Looking at the stone ceiling, our adventurer remains quite anxious about tomorrow. Remembering the human world, he recalls how climbing the ranks created a suffocating competition. But he soon deduces that evolving in this labyrinth seemed to have a very different meaning. After all, getting stronger using new abilities just ensured that everyone would stay alive. Looking at his little friends, the young warrior smiles, relieved to be able to protect his group. Getting up slowly, the guardian sneaks out, wanting to check the area outside the dungeon. Silently, one of the birds notices the leader leaving and follows his movement in the dark. Walking through the bushes, the boy checks the secret passage, confirming it was secure. Stepping into a refreshing stream, the young man washes his feet, trying to relax his mind a little. Suddenly, he turns his neck, noticing that his furry pet had cutely followed him. At that, the two-winged birds also land nearby, staring seriously at the protagonist. Noticing an apprehensive look on the flying beast, the young master asks what was going on. The giant bird swallows hard, mustering the courage to ask the chief a very important question. Being very sincere, the creature questions the main reason the boy risks his life for the monsters. Caught by surprise, the hero is very confused, blinking his round eyes, not knowing what to say. Joining the conversation, the other bird asks about its brave guardian's human family. The large bird inquires if the young man's parents were as kind and loving people as he is. Stuttering awkwardly, the sweaty little monster shakes his head, remembering his sad human past. Sitting on the lake's edge, he confesses to being the son of two purely normal and gentle people. With a melancholic air, the boy recalls that his old memories were very painful before. In his old memories, the hero suffered on the streets, starving while the cold cut through his skin. However, a generous couple ended up adopting the poor little child, taking him out of that unjust life. Those two wonderful people gave him a safe home, proving that he would never feel fear again. Finally, the sweet orphan had the chance to call those people his parents. Being absurdly happy, being incredibly loving, they welcomed the hurt boy without any prejudice at the time. However, a gigantic earthquake hit the city, breaking the houses and taking away the poor guy's joy. That whole dream crumbled to rubble, leaving the little boy without a family again. Watching the river water, the hero cries with a smile, because his parents' honorable way saved his life. The protagonist deeply regrets never being able to be a normal teenager like his parents wanted. Reflecting on his current situation, he is proud to apply all that same kindness in his home. Getting licks from the little wolf, the leader pets the creature's fur, swearing that everything would get better now. The bird is deeply moved hearing the hero's tragedy, understanding the pain of that broken soul. With great respect, the bird reflects that it finally understood the origin of such beautiful empathy. Far away, we see a giant tower located in the center of the great capital. In the inner district of this city, there is a huge secret research laboratory. In the shadows, a man reads an official request ordering the destruction of the Green Dungeon. Lying on the sofa, the man finds it interesting to read letters from boring people sometimes. With an excited smile, he finds this whole situation a real surprise. At that, the scientist decides he will thoroughly study this bizarre F-rank labyrinth. Returning to the peaceful forest, we see the sun shining brightly on the ruins. Suddenly, a violent tremor echoes through the scenery, breaking the calm of the environment. Feeling the ground shake, our hero and his adorable pets are on alert. A red screen warns that new challengers have invaded the place after a long time. Worried, the magical birds deduce that a new enemy faction has arrived. Remaining calm, the guardian smiles, stating that he would take care of everything. With a determined look, the young man dashes off swiftly, vowing to protect his sweet home. Arriving at the entrance, the young man jumps high, surprising the troop of invaders. Without hesitation, the brutes activate their magical abilities, ready to attack. Analyzing the group, the master confirms that everyone there has very high levels. However, the leader doesn't panic, deciding to handle the situation step by step. Focusing his energy, the warrior activates the earthquake magic, aiming for a great victory. With his eyes glowing brightly, the protagonist concentrates an immense power in his hands. Remembering the past, he notes that this technique belonged to the former evil leader. But now, the boy swears he will use this crushing attack to defend his home. Terrified, the hunters recognize the brutal magic and begin to sweat with fear. The entire ground glows intensely, forcing the henchmen to dodge quickly. Immediately, a colossal explosion destroys the terrain, kicking up a lot of dust. Caught in the blast, one of the warriors is thrown, taking gigantic damage. Utterly desperate, the troop tries to survive in the middle of that destroyed land. Hovering in the air, the powerful guardian furiously orders them to go back home. Showing the huge crater, the leader threatens to annihilate them all if they take another step. Terrified by the overwhelming force, the mercenaries run, asking for the gate to be opened. Fleeing swiftly, a big guy complains that returning without items would leave them with no profit. However, the other henchman smiles, dropping a small metallic object during the escape. The bizarre silver device comes to life, revealing very suspicious red eyes. Activating his enhanced vision, the boy notices that strange floating machine. Analyzing it closely, the hero deduces that it is just a fish, shaped by robot. With that, the master realizes that those humans' goal was not to beat the dungeon. The immense stone doors lock, sealing the coward's exit with a boom. Alone in the calm, the purple-eyed young man wonders what they really wanted. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes widen as he has a great epiphany about the invasion. Several blue panels appear, informing him that he has stolen the magic of the 6 fugitives. Reading the notifications, the boy reflects on the dangerous enemies of the future. Being very optimistic, he focuses on the bright side of gaining super varied abilities. Soon, the mystical birds fly to the master, praising the very quick end to that combat. Very pleased, our leader waves, joyfully calling his flying partners. At that moment, the brilliant young man has a great idea as he looks at his allies. Full of excitement, the hero decides to immediately test one of the new stolen techniques. Doing a backflip, the protagonist activates the air swim magic, impressing the beasts. Floating swiftly, the chief celebrates that he can now also fly through the skies there. However, the joy is short-lived as the boy loses total control of his flotation. Falling awkwardly, the poor guy smashes his face directly into a green bush. Worried about their master, the twin birds descend hastily, asking if he got hurt. Stuck in a branch, the adventurer laughs awkwardly, admitting that mastering spells requires practice. After getting the hang of it, the young man focuses his mind, managing to glide through the air very lightly. Gliding like a blur, our hero questions when the birds got their powers. Recalling its birth, the great beast states that it was born with magical abilities. Shocked by the information, the boy asks if all magical creatures grow up that way. Flying together, the partner reveals that weak beasts are born without any gifts, just like the little wolves. At that, the dungeon leader gets a curious expression, wanting to know about the strength of humans. The mystical bird states coldly that only animals are born with an aptitude for magic there. The explanation details that ordinary human beings can never use powers without help. With that, the protagonist understands that all the invaders' strength comes from their equipped weapons. Explaining the details, the bird reveals that these weapons are created using the bodies of magical monsters. Completely shocked, the boy's eyes widen upon hearing such a terrible and cruel truth. At that, the master puts the pieces together, realizing that all the weapons he broke were once living creatures. Utterly terrified, he reflects on whether he spent all this time destroying his own brethren. Being very affectionate, the bird asks its leader not to look so sad. The winged pet continues, warning that the submission ring is not just for controlling beasts. In fact, the cruel magical tool is used to drag poor animals into the human world. Soon, the bird details that the enslaved never return home and are forced to fight even after their passing. With that, the beast smiles, confessing that breaking these items actually saves the poor creatures' souls. Hearing this gentle perspective, the protagonist gives a slight smile, feeling a little relieved. Sighing deeply, the guardian acknowledges that there must be countless hidden tragedies in this world. But right now, his only mission is to focus on protecting every cute resident of his sanctuary. Far away, the blonde scientist finds it hilarious to know that even experienced warriors lost the fight. With a malicious smile, the researcher declares he has gained a great reason to visit the place. In the same place, we see the city's rich lord, very disappointed with his guild's weakness. However, the burly nobleman smiles, feeling very lucky to have found a much better plan. After all, the little spy fish floats gently, landing right in the hand of an extremely famous genius. This elegant young man in a white coat is Professor Tulin, praising his robot's excellent work. Using a bit of magic, the small device begins to project a strong light from its eyes. Immediately, a huge holographic screen brightens the entire room, leaving the scientist excited. Utterly amazed by the recording, the Lord swears he has never seen such an incredible item in his life. Observing the images of the green ruin, he is stunned by the device's great video technology. The camera finally shows the hero's glowing face, completing the reconnaissance of the labyrinth. Maintaining great elegance, the mysterious blonde man declares that the next step of this mission is quite obvious. Very confused and sweating coldly, the nobleman swallows hard, humbly asking for more details of the plan. Closing his eyes, the intelligent researcher responds coldly that he will conduct an exploration of the place. Being ruthless, the doctor promises to uncover every secret of the forest before destroying everything there. Returning to the dungeon, we see the young master in the tree, playing with his beloved white pup, but suddenly, a thunderous red alert flashes in the air, breaking the cute mood instantly. Startled by the new intrusion, the protagonist hugs his pets, fearing another big combat. The large gate begins to shake violently, causing despair among the poor spying monsters. However, a deep darkness takes over the entrance, blocking any view of the mystical threat. Focusing entirely on his instincts, the purple-eyed boy lands slowly on the green grass. Observing from a distance, the team notices a deadly silence dominating the huge gray stone entrance. Hidden among the foliage, our leader questions the lack of warriors crossing the gap. With that, a sudden voice echoes through the brush, calmly asking if the young man is the boss of the area. Getting a gigantic shock, the master jumps back swiftly, wanting to find the source of the sound. Slowly, the invisible figure reveals a very large leg descending gracefully from the top of the ruin. Appearing upside down, the dangerous blonde doctor smiles, satisfied to have finally found his target. Assuming his combat stance, the young man panics at the wrongdoer's bizarre magic. The rookie adventurer reflects that the rival's concealment ability didn't even trigger the warning screens. The confrontation becomes tense, and the guardian quickly deduces he has never faced such an absurd mind. Gritting his teeth and holding his bluish mana, the young man demands to know the new challenger's plans. The man in the suit calmly states that he just wants to sweep the woods and take the treasures. Remembering the sacred item received earlier, the hero concludes that his intuition was absolutely right. He understands perfectly that the invaders' main target will always be the rare mystical rewards. Walking casually, the man states that he plans to steal everything in a total sweep of the labyrinth. Quite shocked, the dungeon leader internally questions the sinister meaning of this sweep. Being very snarky, the human explains that extracting the treasure causes great damage to the dwelling. Freezing in pure horror, the boy hears that losing the rare jewel completely destroys the dungeon. If one of these relics falls into humanity's hands, the entire magical base of the system gets deactivated. With the place's purpose gone, the forest inhabitants also cease to exist in an instant. The doctor lets out a little laugh, warning that disappearing from the map is just how this brutal world works. Dominated by pure hatred, the guardian charges forward furiously, vowing to prevent his friend's end. Laughing at the boy's resistance, the doctor conjures several flying metallic beasts around him. Trying to be very fast, our warrior summons all his magical reserves, attacking in one rush. However, the countless sharp fish form a beautiful shield to defend their owner from that ambush. Analyzing the man's bizarre arsenal, the boy understands the gigantic disadvantage in the battle. Thinking quickly, he activates the spinning wind blade, easily deflecting the darts. Smiling wickedly, the wrongdoer scoffs at the useless effort, claiming to have predicted this very action. In the blink of an eye, the scientist's mechanical birds fall to the ground, completely destroyed. But surprisingly, the metal fish begin to regenerate at an absurd speed. Seeing that, our guardian is shocked, realizing his attacks are causing no damage. Floating in the air, the man in the suit scoffs at the situation, saying the boy is terrible against this trick. Cornered, the young warrior sweats coldly, not knowing how to face a target immune to cuts and blows. Suddenly, a very intense bluish energy begins to shine brightly on the battlefield. Being super fast, one of the winged beasts fires a gigantic beam of freezing magic at the villain. Startled, the dungeon leader's eyes widen, impressed by his partner's strength. The colossal impact creates a mountain of ice, trapping all the robotic fish at once. Protectively, the bird warns the enemy not to lay a finger on its beloved chief. Laughing heartily, the mysterious blonde man warns the little birds not to do anything too dangerous. Ignoring the warning, the other mystical creature dives from the skies, launching its powerful destructive beam. In an agile maneuver, the doctor manages to dodge the lethal beam, showing he has very quick reflexes. Growling with great fury, the magical beast shows that it will have no pity for that mercenary. Being very calm, the scientist just backs away through the air while observing the beast's fury. With an analytical look, the man in the suit notices that the birds are not wearing the submission rings. Intrigued by the discovery, The elegant man questions how those beasts managed to free themselves. Deducing everything, the blonde man confirms that those monsters are the same ones that escaped from the old guild. Annoyed with the talk, the twin partners advance cruelly, wanting to slice the chatty enemy. Dodging gracefully, the scholar sighs, complaining that the birds don't want to talk today. At that, the human gets a big shock, feeling a sinister energy emerging from right below him. Seizing the great opening, our hero launches a brutal sneak attack from below. Passing straight through the blow, the scientist praises the tactic, stating that the boy does frightening things. Shining brightly, the guardian places himself in front of his friends, demanding that the villain retreat. Adjusting his glasses, the wrongdoer smiles, warning that the prey needs a little time to rest. Being very arrogant, the man in white says goodbye, retreating into a dark portal in the sky. Reading the system panel, the protagonist is lost, realizing the number of invaders has dropped to 0. The shock increases when the warrior tries to activate the power theft and notices that nothing happened. A red screen confirms that there are no enemy abilities available to be copied. Completely flabbergasted, the boy wonders why he can't absorb that target's strength. Reflecting on the rules, the master deduces that he only gains new spells if he defeats the wrongdoers. Remembering the man's sadistic smile, our hero fears the mysteries of that genius invader. With a serious look, the young leader realizes that this opponent is on a very different power level. Far away in the grand capital mansion, the scientist announces that he has completely changed his plans. Sweating a lot, the chubby lord asks nervously if something went wrong during the woods exploration. Remaining calm, the researcher states that he will conduct a special investigation in that mysterious place. The blonde man confesses that he wishes to capture the twin birds before finishing the dungeon cleanup. Super greedy, the nobleman clasps his hands and begs the doctor to capture the labyrinth's boss as well. Seeking a huge profit, the old man argues that the monster master would fetch a fortune on the market. Being very calculating, the scientist guarantees success as long as the capture rings are provided. Showing great confidence, the elegant man tells his partner not to interfere with the plan's progress. With a sinister smile, the chubby man states that he will provide all the resources the genius needs. Talking about henchmen, the man in the suit praises the lethal strength of his new invasion team. Staring at the enormous bionic fish, the doctor swears that these mercenaries are incredibly valuable. Returning to the ruins, we see the guardian and his faithful friends staring at the shining treasure chest. The boy observes the rare relic, recalling the strong threat made by the cowardly scientist earlier. With a heavy heart, the purple-eyed hero concludes that if they lose the item, their home will be erased. Determined to prevent this great tragedy, the young man promises to protect the jewel with his own life. Analyzing the tactical map, the young man devises a defense plan focused on stopping the troops at the entrance. Suddenly, the comm ends when a loud red panel beeps, detecting a new invasion. Nimbly, the master descends from the branches, warning his pets that the challengers have arrived. Immediately, the immense doors open, firing several golden lasers that destroy the scenery. Narrowly escaping, the protagonist rolls across the ground, startled by the extremely fast attack. Entering with great class, the malicious blonde man greets the little monster, stating it's good to see him again. Furious with the human's audacity, our leader accuses the villain of wanting to steal the mystical relic. With a wicked smile, the scientist declares that today he only came to capture his test subject. Utterly astonished, the young warrior's eyes widen as he notices the robotic fish advancing on him. At an absurd speed, the mechanical tool grows to a colossal size, threatening to swallow the master. With no time to react, the guardian watches the gigantic metallic beast falling swiftly toward him. Caught by surprise, the boy ends up cornered inside a shining, completely impenetrable shield. At that, the villain displays a glowing red ring, wanting to know the whereabouts of the twin dragons. Shocked by the item, the boy quickly deduces that it is a submission cuff. Remembering the past, he understands that this tool cruelly forces monsters to obey. Completely furious, the young master advances swiftly, vowing that he would never allow that. Using his wind blade, he attacks, determined to spare his friends from this great suffering. Meanwhile, a mysterious lancer walks slowly, exploring the dungeon's hideout. With spear in hand, the henchman praises the accurate prediction of his intelligent blonde chief. The plan was for the great scientist to distract the team, focusing on capturing the winged beasts. Meanwhile, the henchman would be responsible for secretly invading the place to steal the mystical chest. Being very calculating, This was the true invasion plan devised by the mercenaries. However, a small noise echoes through the dark environment, catching the armed soldier's attention. Looking down, the invader finds the small white pup protecting its new home. Very bravely, the little wolf shrinks back, trying to intimidate the big human away. Staring at the cuteness, the evil warrior raises his weapon without showing any pity. Seeing the sharp tip, the little animal panics, sweating coldly in the face of imminent danger. Trembling in pure terror, the poor pet backs away slowly, trying to protect the mushrooms. Closing its little eyes, the furry creature accepts its fate, crying for not being able to fight. Back in the combat, the hero focuses his mind, remembering the importance of keeping the jewel safe. Surprisingly, the brave little pup stomps its paw on the ground, gaining great courage. Protecting the group, the small pet growls firmly to drive the bad man away from that hideout. Returning to the clash, the man in the suit raises a small magical shield, deflecting the blue power. The violent shock generates a strong explosion, launching our leader far away with the impact. Very serene, the human plans to capture the protagonist first to facilitate his victory. Quickly, the guardian recovers his balance, launching countless cutting beams at the villain. With fury in his eyes, the boy vows to destroy every evil ring he finds. Mocking the threat, the researcher guarantees that monsters could never break the item. Flying aggressively, the young man retorts, revealing he broke the big dragon's chains. Remembering the mistreatment, he states that he couldn't stand to see the creatures suffering like that. Intrigued by the absurd revelation, the villain questions if the boy really accomplished this feat. Squeezing the mystical tool, the human wants to confirm if his opponent shattered the cuffs. Focused on his research, the doctor concludes he is facing a completely unprecedented monster in history. At that, he understands that the real prize of that place wasn't the birds, but the boss himself. Joining the fray, the warrior asks why they use such wicked artifacts there. The hero laments the existence of an item focused solely on imprisoning the hearts of beasts. Gritting his teeth, the leader concentrates his power, wanting to end this cycle of pain quickly. Flying with agility, the boy tries a frontal attack, focusing on taking down the blonde man. Smiling sinisterly, the intelligent scientist praises the great determination of his agile prey. Far from the fight, the adorable white pup howls loudly, calling for help in the forest. Hearing the familiar call, the master freezes, sweating coldly as he senses the immense danger. Terrified by the howl, the protagonist realizes that the secret sanctuary is also under attack. Gaining an advantage, the man in the suit scoffs at the situation, asking if the boss would save his pet. Completely in shock, the adventurer freezes in the air, feeling the weight of this great choice. With his priorities clear, the hero flees the clash, stating that saving the pack is crucial. Watching the escape, the human is happy to have found the perfect specimen for his tests. Shifting to the shelter, the poor little animal backs away, barking loudly to scare off the threat. Without any pity, the burly hunter points the giant spear to finish off the small wolf. Being incredibly cowardly, the mercenary praises the creature's sense of smell while smiling wickedly. Wielding a shining weapon, the villain promises to use the little dog as a test target for his power. Shedding several tears, the pup cries in pure despair, sensing its tragic fate. Miraculously, our brave guardian arrives from the sky, delivering a brutal kick against the weapon. Landing in front of the enemy, the young man understands that this group had one more strong henchman. Protecting the cutie, the protagonist gets the lancer's attention, calling him to a fair fight. Excited by the new challenge, the wrongdoer lets out a bizarre laugh, vowing to finish the boy right there. Ordering his furry partner to flee, the dungeon leader charges swiftly at the spear. The magical clash between the human blade and the chief's mystical power creates a large, intense flash. Sliding across the grass, our adventurer shows great agility, exchanging destructive blows. Reflecting on the fight, the boy realizes that using wide-ranging spells there would destroy his own home. On top of that, the enemy warrior masters very heavy blows, forcing our hero to be on the defensive. Facing the villain from a distance, the boy takes a deep breath, trying to come up with a new strategic plan. With a cold look, the leader understands that he needs to use different tactics to save his home. Staring at that giant spear, our hero notices the strong purple energy glowing on the sharp blade. At that, his brilliant mind recognizes the weapon's aura, immediately remembering the former dragon. Completely in shock, the boy recalls that humans' magical tools are made from monsters. Realizing the cruelty, he understands that the invaders take down creatures and use their parts as materials. Filled with hatred, the guardian faces the enemy, questioning if that weapon was made from the great dragon. With a wicked smile, the Lancer scoffs, asking if the boy was the one who freed the beast. Being super arrogant, the henchman shows off his new weapon, swearing it gets stronger with every takedown. Sweeting coldly, the young master hears the mercenary thank him for making the item collection easier. Annoyed by the audacity, the protagonist states that he didn't free his ally for him to become a spear. However, the wrongdoer just laughs, saying he loves the thrill of power and getting a lot of gold. Totally sadistic, the burly warrior declares that hunting magical beasts never gets old. Charging into the attack, the invader tries to crush our hero, who dodges with great agility. Caught by surprise by the speed, the soldier backs away, extremely confused about what happened. Seizing the opening, the dungeon leader uses his powers and violently counters the assault. Clenching his fists tightly, the young man remembers the dragon's great wish to save its friends. Moved by that old dream, he vows not to let his ally's power be used for harm. Exuding an intimidating magic, the guardian charges forward furiously, promising to destroy that tool. With a beautiful acrobatic leap, our adventurer narrowly escapes a low, cutting blow. Holding the weapon firmly, the mercenary grits his teeth, not believing the boy's physical strength. Suddenly, the soldier sweats coldly and gets a big shock, noticing the little monster approaching. Using his divine speed, the labyrinth's chief launches a brutal attack straight at the rival's face. Pushed back, the panting big guy refuses to accept that he is losing in a weak dungeon. Dominated by pure ego, the blonde warrior shouts that this is impossible and prepares to attack. However, our hero's eyes widen as he realizes the cowardly human is trying to flee. Without a second thought, the invader leaps, falling swiftly into the forest to lose the chief. Looking at the path, the purple-eyed young man wonders what is in that direction of the woods. With an evil smile, the henchman lands softly on the ground and celebrates finding a new target. Soon, we see the little wolf hopping happily, not noticing the presence of the hidden dangerous man. Planning to get much stronger, the villain raises the spear, wanting to take down the adorable little pup. Desperate about the situation, the master yells from a distance, telling his little friend to run as fast as possible. Getting a huge scare, the white little dog freezes in terror upon hearing its owner's shout. Miraculously, the mysterious scientist floats down from the sky, calmly watching the whole scene. At that, everyone on the battlefield freezes, noticing the sudden arrival of that man. Turning his head, the Lancer curses, and is surprised by the interruption from his supposed companion. Thinking he wants to steal his prey, the blonde man tells the man in the suit to back off, wielding his weapon. Without hesitation, the big guy strikes mercilessly, hitting one of the doctor's robotic fish. Maintaining a super elegant pose, the scientist just floats, observing the other's arrogant attitude. Very confused, the hero raises his hands, not understanding why that man protected the poor wolf. Quite enraged, the soldier asks the reasons for so much interference in his perfect hunt. Being very frank, the classy man warns that his colleague would never win the dungeon even if he got stronger. Calling the henchman dead weight, the scholar makes it clear that his efforts would be completely useless. With a mocking smile, the man in the suit gently suggests the mercenary go back home. Foaming with rage, the Lancer questions if that researcher considers him inferior to the little monster. Sighing heavily, the genius just stares at the brute, knowing the man has a huge ego. With an analytical look, the scientist states that he will use the soldier's stubbornness for his own research. Holding his injured pet, the young leader hears the doctor say that he has changed his crazy plans. Defying the orders, the furious big guy tells the intellectual to take back all his harsh insults. Charging his spear with destructive energy, the mercenary vows to turn the doctor into pure fertilizer. Immediately, the cowardly human advances, violently striking his own guild companion. Watching that whole fight, our guardian is completely lost at the stupidity of those guys. Suddenly, the scientist gives a beautiful smile and asks if the monster chief wants to team up. Amid the general confusion, the poor boy's eyes widen, not understanding anything anymore. With a smile, the scientist announces that the full-scale conquest mission has been completely called off. Our hero is left dumbfounded, wondering what that sudden decision could possibly mean. Just then, the blonde warrior and the researcher stare each other down, hinting at some serious trouble between the invaders. Keeping his cool, the young master watches the situation with a bright, determined look in his eyes. The Lancer is furious at being compared to a simple boss from such a weak dungeon. Filled with rage, the mercenary charges forward to attack the protagonist while the doctor just watches. Acting incredibly arrogant, The big guy swears he'll take down the boy to prove his own strength. But then, several mechanical fish appear out of nowhere, surrounding the soldier and leaving him pretty spooked. Floating in the air, the man in the lab coat simply watches the scene with a very mysterious gaze. The scientist gives a wicked smile, making the dungeon master completely suspicious. Ignoring the threat, the invader activates a devouring skill to multiply his power. Our hero recognizes the magic of the dragon he set free and closes his eyes in sorrow. With that, the blonde soldier boasts about his spear, which grows stronger with every opponent he takes down. Getting ready to strike, the warrior vows to use the weapon to drain all of his target's power. Seeing the charge, the protagonist dodges the finishing blow while the doctor analyzes the fight. With his body glowing, the young guardian declares that he won't let him use the dragon's power. Suddenly, the two collide in mid-air, creating a huge explosion of purple and blue energy. The two magical auras clash with incredible force, generating a super intense light. Our master's power goes head-to-head with the cursed spear in a test of pure strength. In the middle of the fight, the mercenary's eyes go wide, stunned by the boy's resilience. To the villain's surprise, his powerful weapon shatters into pieces, and the hero is sent flying. Falling through the air, the protagonist stares at his glowing hand with a very confused look on his face. A small crystal from the great dragon appears in the boy's palm, explaining the power boost. From a distance, the researcher watches the end of the battle with a slight, satisfied smile. Down on the ground, the lancer stares at his broken spear, unable to believe his humiliating defeat. He laments being defeated by a simple E-rank monster as the young man approaches. But the soldier refuses to give up, clenching his fists and unleashing a sinister power. Slamming his fist on the ground, the stubborn warrior releases several waves of reddish energy into the air. The villain orders the protagonist to kneel as rings of light form all around him. Soon the hero is caught by the king's subjugation magic, completely trapped in the snare. The enemy swears he'll turn the young man's body into materials to sell for a hefty price. However, the guardian of the forest glares at the henchman with a sharp gaze, not showing a hint of fear. Using his tail like a blade, the boy easily slices through the red energy chains. In despair, the blonde mercenary is surrounded by his own shattered chains. Seeing his magic cancelled out, the human is in total shock, claiming it should be impossible. Suddenly, a bright flash of light hits the invader in the face, giving him no time to defend himself. The impact knocks the big guy out instantly, and he slumps down against a tree trunk. Seeing the fight is over, the scientist calmly strolls through the forest with his hands in his pockets. In the reflection of his glasses, we can see the scholar carefully analyzing his opponent. And so, our hero stands before the defeated enemy, waiting for the next move. Filled with admiration, the researcher praises the boy for being able to break the subjugation ring. Getting straight to the point, the dungeon master asks what the scientist's real objective is. In a flashback, the young man remembers that the blonde guy saved him, but also tried to use the control ring. The guardian asks if the invader's goal wasn't the complete conquest of the magical labyrinth. Taking off his glasses, the man in the lab coat states with a smile that it was just his job. He explains that his mission was to investigate the area and capture the boss for his superiors. With a sharp look, our protagonist tries to understand the difference between his job and his goal. Closing his eyes, the researcher says that his personal research topic is something else entirely. With a gentle motion, the mysterious man brings both hands to his own neck. To everyone's shock, he reveals that his goal is to remove his own magical chains. The dungeon master is left speechless, completely shocked by the incredible revelation. Just then, a red subjugation ring glows brightly on the scientist's neck, just like a collar. Not understanding at all, the hero stares at the man's smile, who doesn't seem to care about the situation. The boy's pupils even shrink as he processes that wild piece of information. The researcher reveals he's a hybrid, born to a human father and a very powerful monster mother. He repeats that the mission was to capture him, but his personal desire goes far beyond his work. Being a scholar, he states that he wants to invent a way to get rid of that control ring. That's why the scientist won't destroy the dungeon, because our hero is the key to his freedom. The man in white promises to take care of everything in the outside world, but the young man doesn't understand this offer of help. To prove his alliance, he promises not to harm any monsters or conquer the labyrinth. With a smile, the researcher asks to return later to continue his investigation, but the dungeon master remains on high alert, not letting his guard down one bit. His focused mind vows to furiously resist anyone who uses that sinister ring. The scientist plans to earn the young man's trust, then use him as a material to break his own collar. However, one of the allied birds shouts out that she can't possibly trust that man. Full of anger, she points out that the invader was the one who attacked her sister, and that he's a major enemy. Being very polite, the man in the lab coat simply apologizes for what happened back then. He hopes that the next time they meet, a fight won't break out so suddenly. And as he turns to leave, the scientist thinks to himself that he's finally found a way to destroy the control ring. His new plan is to catch our hero completely off guard in a future, well-aimed attack. Watching the enemy walk away, the little bird asks if the master is sure about letting him go. With a distant look in his eyes, the boy says he wants to believe him, but he's afraid of letting a threat walk free. The memory of the man talking about his human father and monster mother comes back to him. With a focused gaze, the young master of the forest seems to make an important decision. So, he asks if there are other hybrids in the outside world trapped with that same ring. With a serious expression, the scientist coldly replies that yes, there are many others just like him. And in a strange scene, he reveals that these beings are mass-produced inside test tubes. Shocked by this revelation, the protagonist and his winged partner's eyes go wide with alarm. As he walks away, the researcher states that they are all treated very differently. But our hero interrupts him, asking the visitor to wait just a little longer. Suddenly, one of his glowing claws begins to detach from his own powerful body. With a pained expression, the boy tears off a piece of himself with great determination. Seeing the unbelievable scene, the scholar and the bird are left completely speechless with shock. The guardian then holds the newly created material in his hands with a very serious expression. He offers the item to the scientist, telling him to use it as research material right away. Even though he's in pain, the young man maintains his heroic and determined stance. From a distance, the man in the lab coat watches the boy's actions, not understanding his motivation. The protagonist holds out his hand with the magical item and tells the researcher to use it. Completely baffled, the invader asks why the boy is offering up his own tail. And he replies that this power is needed for everyone living in the outside world. The scientist is frozen, speechless at this act of pure kindness and sacrifice. He still asks why he's helping, since this has nothing to do with the boy. With his eyes glowing purple, the hero states that he just couldn't pretend he didn't see it. And just like that, the magical tail is placed in the human's hand, who is deeply moved. Holding the item, the researcher looks at the young man with a sense of admiration he's never felt before. He analyzes the material with a slight smile on his face, touched by the monster's kindness. Seeing that his help was accepted, the dungeon master gives a sincere and relieved smile. However, the little bird still looks grumpy and very suspicious. She warns that she still doesn't trust the scientist, but the master says it's all right. Grumbling, the flying partner calls her leader a fool for being such a pushover. From a distance, the man in the lab coat watches the pair's interaction, with the fish flying all around. He reflects that he never imagined a being so kind could exist in this world. As a way of thanking him, the scholar decides to tell him a very interesting story. Their dungeon evolved from F rank to E rank, but in all of history, only 7 have ever done that. Continuing his explanation, he reveals that just like monsters, dungeons also have ranks. A screen shows his level, and he says that each rank requires a certain level to conquer it. The protagonist and the bird are confused by the somewhat complicated explanation. A diagram shows that for an F rank, the minimum level is 5 and anyone weaker can't get in. If an invader doesn't have the required level, a red barrier blocks them from entering. Then, the researcher reveals that the highest rank requires level 999, and no one has it. The boy is left speechless, learning that no one has ever managed to enter an SSS-rank dungeon. The scientist concludes that if their dungeon goes up 7 levels, it will become unbeatable. Shocked, our hero thinks about the idea of having a completely unconquerable dungeon. But the man warns that a place that levels up also attracts very powerful enemies and heroes. Suddenly, a very bright golden light surprises the protagonist and his winged partner. A system screen announces that the dungeon's rank system recharge has begun. The intense light fills the area, startling the young man and his pet. The two of them stand before the dungeon entrance, which is glowing with a golden energy. The scientist shields his eyes from the glare and is impressed by the evolution system. With wide eyes, he carefully observes every detail of the powerful magic. Our hero looks up very confused, wondering what that mysterious light is. With his eyes glowing purple, the boy's vision widens, completely shocked by the scene. At that moment, a massive golden door appears from the dungeon's ceiling, illuminating everything. Looking closely, the protagonist realizes the shining object is a real door. Totally stunned by the situation, the young warrior questions what that thing is. Just then, a system screen announces that the dungeon's unexplored area has a locked gate. The entire group stands there, observing the majestic golden door floating in the sky. With a smile, the scientist states that behind that door, there must be a great treasure. Shocked by the revelation, the dungeon master and his winged partner shout the word, treasure. The researcher explains that high-rank dungeons are hard to conquer for a reason. They contain a large number of hidden treasures that make exploration difficult. The Guardian becomes thoughtful, trying to understand the logic behind the number of treasures. Basically, conquering a dungeon means collecting all the treasures that exist inside it. The hero's winged partner immediately imagines several chests, and he understands the advantage of the situation. Suddenly, a new system message catches the attention of the boy and his flying pet. The notice says the door will only be unlocked when the dungeon reaches A rank in power. The young man's jaw drops when he finds out he needs to reach A rank to open the gate. And since they are at E rank, the challenge is to go up 4 whole levels to clear the way. Another data window appears, revealing the start of a count for defeated invaders. The scientist deduces that the key to evolving is the number of enemies who fail their mission. Using his genius memory, he recalls that other dungeons needed nearly 10,000 defeats. Upon hearing he needs to defeat 10,000 people, our hero instantly starts to panic. His flying partner wonders how many years it would take to reach that absurd goal. The researcher agrees that reaching A rank is a very long and super difficult journey. After all, in that world, humans have an overwhelming advantage against all monsters. This is the harsh reality of a place that is completely unfair to the poor creatures. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the purple-eyed young man stares at the ground, processing the heavy information. He recalls fighting only a few dozen, and that 10,000 is an impossible number. Remembering his tragic past, the boy states that he doesn't want to lose anyone dear to him again. But looking at his friends, he smiles and says, there is a way to protect everyone. With a determined look, the hero affirms that there's no need to despair, because there is a way out. Maintaining a firm posture, the Guardian fills with hope next to his faithful partner. The scientist watches in admiration as the boy refuses to be overcome by anger or despair. With an analytical gaze, the researcher continues to study the young man's behavior. He concludes that although the challenge is great, this is without a doubt the best shortcut of all. To start his plan, the man in the lab coat summons his robotic fish with a snap of his fingers. The mechanical creatures immediately surround the unconscious body of the defeated blonde mercenary. The researcher announces that he will withdraw the request to conquer the dungeon to keep his promise. With a grateful smile, our protagonist puts a hand on his chest as a sign of respect. 7 days later, we see the blonde soldier slamming his fist on a fancy wooden table. The mercenary Roncero Lopez complains about the disgrace of being treated like an E-rank failure. A lord named Pedro Detlas calmly asks his guest to cool down a bit. But the warrior shouts that he demands compensation and the restoration of his lost honor. With a malicious smile, the big guy seems to have a plan to get what he wants. The wealthy lord just pours the man a drink, trying to calm his fury. He agrees to listen to the mercenary's demands while filling the glass with expensive wine. The two talk about the soldier's honor, who seems very pleased with the negotiation. Making a toast, the lord and the warrior seal their deal on very friendly terms. The blonde man downs the glass in one go, drinking all the liquid without suspecting a thing. His evil plan is to use the money to buy items and destroy the dungeon by himself. With a sinister smile on his face, he gets ready to put his revenge into action. Suddenly, the glass slips from his hand and falls to the floor, shattering into pieces. The man's face begins to twist in pain, and he doesn't understand what's happening. He clutches his throat and glares at the lord, calling him a monster with pure rage. The chubby man smiles and says that with this, the soldier would no longer have to live in shame. In his final moments, the mercenary says this has to be a very bad joke. And just like that, the man's body falls to the floor, motionless, as the poison acts quickly. The lord complains that the new poison he used unfortunately stained his expensive rug. Looking into the shadows, the chubby man states that he sensed someone's presence hiding there. Just then, The scientist steps out of the darkness with a smile on his face, being the target of that call. With a smile on his lips, the scientist suggests that the two of them have a little chat. The Lord apologizes for the scene while the mercenary's body remains on the floor. He states that getting rid of rebellious elements is a very common and normal thing to happen. The researcher agrees with a smile, saying that it is indeed very common. The chubby man then asks what the man in the lab coat wanted to discuss. Pointing a finger, he accuses the Lord of hiding many things from the great capital of the kingdom. The nobleman plays dumb and asks what he could possibly be hiding from anyone. With a slight smile, the scholar prepares to reveal all the chubby man's dirty secrets. He reveals that the Lord ignored 2,046 arrests and profited billions from it. Shocked by the numbers, the man trembles in fear, unable to believe he was found out. He reflects that he forged over 1,000 records, and that no one had ever noticed a thing. Desperate, the chubby man questions how that researcher managed to find out everything. The scientist explains that he never forgets anything his five senses have experienced. With his eyes glowing, he activates his perfect memory ability to prove his power. The Lord panics and calls the man a monster, finding that ability ridiculous. Showing a document, the scholar informs him that the capital no longer requires his services. He explains that the fraud is insignificant, but the capital loves to purge rebellious elements. And so, the paper slowly falls into a puddle of blood, symbolizing the end of that corrupt man. The researcher concludes that this is the world government's way of correcting wrong orders. Changing scenes, we return to the forest mausoleum dungeon under a blue sky. Our hero finds it unbelievable that he offered his own body as material for a human. His winged partner scolds him, telling him never to do that again. Surrounded by his friends, the leader apologizes for worrying everyone. The other bird comments that it's the first time she's seen her sister worried about someone else. Turning bright red, the hero's partner denies that she was worried about the boss. Seeing the cute scene, the protagonist smiles as he notices how well everyone gets along. With the little wolf on his shoulder, he decides it's time to talk about what they would do next. His big goal now was to become an SSS-rank dungeon to protect everyone. But to do that, they would need to make 10,000 invaders fail their conquest missions. With a keen look, the bird seems to have an idea to speed up the whole process. She remembers that success is returning alive with materials and treasures from the exploration, and failure is fleeing with nothing or ending up defeated inside the dungeon itself. The young man is relieved that he doesn't have to eliminate the invaders to evolve. However, the birds remind him that the biggest problem is the time all of this would take. Sitting with his pet, the leader reflects that the risk of a total conquest only increases. He thinks that this world of skills and treasures really seems like a video game. Resting with the monsters, the boy finds the idea of living in a game a bit strange. With a determined look, he concludes that he needs to learn more about this new world. His idea is to ask the scientist to explain all the details when he returns. Far away, we see the researcher flying through the skies on a giant, blue, magical whale. He reflects that the Lord is taken care of, and that he took the chance to cancel the conquest mission. With a serious look, the man in the lab coat stares at the horizon with a very thoughtful expression. To him, the real enemy of the monsters is the structure of this world that exploits everyone. And the ones who designed this whole cruel system were the world government that commands the great capital. Holding our hero's tail, the scientist analyzes the item with great admiration. He swears to himself that he will repay his debt to the boy who helped him without asking for anything. Deep down, he hopes that the young man will become the key to changing the world forever. With his eye glowing, the researcher seems to have renewed all his hopes. Changing scenes, we see a tavern full of adventurers drinking and celebrating. In a corner of the bar, one group drinks while another comments on how much the boss is drinking. Sitting on the couch, a white-haired warrior finds it all endlessly boring. One of the drinkers approaches the boss, saying he has a very interesting story. He tells the rumor that the leader Al-Bala became a failed conqueror and was humiliated. With a malicious smile, the man leans in to tell the reason for that great defeat. They say a dangerous dungeon boss with 10 tails and giant teeth appeared. The white-haired warrior listens to everything and finds the idea of an anomalous boss interesting. He continues to drink in silence with his back to the group, a thoughtful look on his face. The gossiper tries to remember the dungeon's location, but is too drunk for that. Suddenly, the mysterious warrior attacks and shatters the bar's chandelier with his swift sword. Everyone in the place is in shock when they see the man slice through the entire tavern with his weapon. With his hand on the drunkard's shoulder, the swordsman asks if his drinking binge is over. Just then, the warrior turns around, revealing a mysterious crest on his white back. Terrified, the man points at the symbol, recognizing the emblem instantly. That was the second subjugation officer of the capital, the powerful Kuga Asura. With a smile, he thinks that a dungeon with an anomalous boss sounds like a fun hunt.